Hi everyone, and welcome to the Soil CRC Knowledge Sharing Project extension series of videos. I'm your host, Simon Kruger. I'm WA's representative of the Knowledge Sharing Project Grower Group participants, and I'm the Project Communications Officer at the West Midlands Group. So this is one of 4 episodes where participating grower groups get to reflect on their time during the KSP and maybe some of their key learnings. And joining me today, it's my absolute pleasure to have Birchip Cropping Group's Kelly Angel. G'day, Kelly. How's it going?
Yeah, good, Simon. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I've done a few videos now, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable. So, Kelly, you're a familiar face to me. Obviously, during the KSP, I get to see you down the Zoom lens fairly often, and then I also get to catch up with you during the Soil CRC conferences, which is lovely. But for people who don't know who you are, if you could introduce yourself and your role, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so Kelly Angel, I work with the Birchip Cropping Group based in Western Victoria, they call it the Southern Mallee where we are, but we're on that fringe between the Mallee and the Wimmera region in Western Victoria. And my role for the last 12 months has been the Senior Manager of the Extension and Comms team, so fairly relevant to what this project has been about.
Spot on. And so at BCG, you've got, I know you've got like a slightly larger team, I guess, than what we've got at West Midlands Group. So how much of your team is split up, like focusing mainly just on extension activities?
Yeah, so we've got 4 staff that work on extension activities, and that 2 of them are sort of sharing a part-time capacity. So, it's a lot bigger than it has been in the past. It is becoming an increasing focus in our business. It's about 20% of our workforce now are focused on extension and comms.
And so, obviously, BCG itself is part of the knowledge sharing project, but how did you participate in the project yourself? What was your role?
Yeah, again, for this particular role, I came in a little bit late, so it took a little bit to find out what it was that I needed to be doing and how to engage and that sort of thing. But we basically had a role to sort of play in sharing some of the things that we do in terms of transfer of knowledge from research to farmers, largely. So basically documenting things that we were doing at events or activities, working out what worked well and what didn't, communicating with other grower groups, and a lot of sharing of ideas and outcomes and that sort of thing. So it was a bit of what are we doing, but also what are others doing and how can we leverage and gain from those experiences too.
And so did you use the knowledge sharing project, like the meetings that we had, as like a bit of a sounding board kind of scenario?
Yeah, I did. Probably initially I spent more time looking at what others were doing and listening. And then as we sort of got into it a bit more and I understood the way people were sharing and what they were trying to get out of it, it became a place where you'd either offer experiences or solutions, or you would ask for feedback on things that might work differently within your own business to get better engagement or better transfer of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I had pretty much a very, very similar experience. I mean, you probably know me as the one that talked a hell of a lot at the start, which is not an unusual scenario. But it was the same for me. It's like it was, I came in late as well, I guess. I was, it started in 2021 and jump in until 2022. But, I really appreciated your insights were generally like just down the line. They were perfectly, you'd sit and listen and then you'd give such a considered response. And for us at WMG, it was always really nice to listen into saying to listen to someone from BCG like yourself, who's, you guys are very successful grower group and you're doing really, really awesome work over there in the East. So it was really great to be able to sit back and hear what you guys were doing and kind of figure out maybe that's going to work for us, and then to be able to bounce it off you ideas and stuff was fantastic.
I think sometimes end up finding as well that your ideas that you thought were good at the time weren't, and just being able to use that group to say, well, we did this, it didn't pay off, we don't suggest you do it, or vice versa. They'll say, yeah, we did do it and it did work, but this is how you tweak it. Just good to sort of unpack those conversations.
Yeah, and because we are trying we're running events, we're trying to engage, we're doing very similar things, but there are those little things that you can kind of tweak up the entire time that maybe one of the other groups did something slightly different, and that was the point that kind of changed everything. So yeah, really nice to share those kinds of things with each other. What I'd like to do now is kind of get into the crux of this video, and that's to select one of the events or things that you tried during the knowledge sharing project that was successful and worked nicely, and maybe unpack some of the learnings from that. So BCG ran a pretty successful event last year, which was the Machinery Recovery Day, and it was almost like a pop-up event, if I recall correctly. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about the event itself, and possibly how people can be brought in for urgent training, and how this presents opportunities for strategic engagement?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is BCG may have run an event, but we were certainly copying someone else's model. The guys up at Grenfell were having similar challenges to us with a wet harvest looming, and they put on a similar event, and we had growers in our area that said, we need something like that here. We can't get up there, it's too far, or the roads are cut or whatever. And so we paid close attention to what they did, and initially, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I was in the office on my own at that time because we had staff on leave. And normally November is a pretty safe time for extension staff to take a bit of a breather. But I had a local corporate farm ring up and say, we want to do something in this space, but we don't know how to make it happen. But he had connections to equipment and the different business houses, and I had the ability to coordinate an event and promote it and that sort of thing. So it was a case of growers saying, this is a need, we don't know what we're going to do, I don't know if I've got the right recovery gear. Paddocks were an absolute mess. They were so wet that people had been bogged multiple times with lighter equipment, let alone harvest equipment. And, so basically we got together and nutted out a bit of a program, got some speakers that we thought would be relevant to different areas of discussion that growers were trying to make decisions on, and put an event together in 8 days.
Yeah, see, that's phenomenally quick. And what kind of turnout did you get?
About 550. So, and they came from up to 5 hours away.
Good Lord, that is phenomenal. Hey, for eight days, and I'm sure it's 8 days of painstakingly hard work with a lot of stress. But 550 is just absolutely incredible.
But it just shows the power of timeliness. Yeah.
Yeah, you're dead right. Yeah, being able to just say, okay, this is a problem right now. Let's pop up and let's do what we do best, and provide a space for some of these answers, some of those questions. Now, have you found that, like, obviously you said that it was a corporate farm, so our members called up and engaged you and saying they want you to do so. Is that like a scenario that happens often at BCG? Like someone calls up and says, I'd really like you to do this?
Yeah, and I guess we don't act on every request because it's got to meet the need of a larger group of people, not just an individual. And so there's probably some people that go, I asked you to do something, you didn't do it. But, this particular item, we were seeing on social channels that lots of people were already starting to worry whether they had the right gear. They couldn't access gear for recovery. So I think across the whole country, the ability to get recovery straps or strops or whatever you needed was, severely depleted because we were all in the same boat. This was a no-brainer. This was a case of there's a need. We've got, people that are willing to put some effort in to make it come together. And on the first few phone calls, like even to the Grenfell group that pulled together their day, and we asked them how they went about it. Straight away, everyone was willing to share information and approaches, because it wasn't just one area that was affected. There was such a big area that was going to be impacted by a wet harvest. And so our key goal was to make sure no one died trying to recover equipment. That was the outcome. Like, how are they going to go about it and think about it and do it safely, so that them and their employees and anyone around equipment goes home at the end of the day. That was the core motivation. And so then it was just slotting in the pieces to make sure you had the right conversations and the right perspective put over the day, so that people could get the most out of it.
Mm. And then have you done, obviously you've done a reflection after the process. Do you, were obviously 550, we've talked about numbers, but was the engagement, really good on the day as well, in your opinion?
Definitely. So we had plenty of positive feedback afterwards, that people went home having a better understanding of what ratings of recovery gear meant. Because even myself, I didn't know that, the rating on a shackle is different to the rating on a strap, and what it actually means in terms of maximum loads. So they actually went home with those basic fundamental pieces of information, so they could look at their gear and go, I know what I can actually recover with it. I think there would have been a few who wanted some live demonstrations, and we probably could have done that. 550 people presents a bit of a safety risk there. So, I'm sure some went home going, gee, I just wanted to see them pulling headers out of bogs. But, a few too many dollars for us to play with there as well.
No, completely understandable. And then, okay, from an organisational perspective, those 8 days, is there anything that you learnt about setting up something like this in a short period of time that you want to share with anyone that's listening in?
I think the key thing that we learned is, if there's a common understanding that there is a need for the topic, you can get heaps of people to help you organise stuff, and everyone will put their hand up to be involved. So I think my key learning is that whether what you're bringing to the table is relevant or not based on how actively involved people want to be from the outset. So we had all the local business houses keen to be engaged. We had coffee vans happy to show up on the day to make sure people were fed and watered. We had, Warrakiri Cropping, who's the corporate farm that worked with us to pull the day together. Nothing was, too hard or too difficult to work on. And I think it was that core, belief that this was needed. It was essential to going into harvest and understanding it. And it was on the back of people not coming off so well from recovering machinery during the winter in New South Wales. So, definitely a joint effort by a lot of people, because it was a needed event.
No, that's a fantastic summary of exactly what we're trying to get to the bottom with with this this little video series. It's a nice little unpacking of an event, and why it worked, why you think it worked, and what you've learned in that process as well. So conversations like we're having today have happened continuously across the knowledge sharing project on our our monthly Zoom meetings. And we've often talked about how it'll be it's super beneficial for scientists and researchers and others who want to engage with with farmers and grower groups to have access to this kind of conversation and this kind of information, these conversations that we're having in the KSP. So we'll be sharing that with the broader research community through our knowledge sharing guide, so that everyone can benefit from improved engagement. So I'll wrap up now. So Kelly, thanks so much for jumping in and having a short chat with me today. Thanks so much for your insights and your knowledge and your support during the knowledge sharing project of the group and of the project itself. And thanks for coming today. Even though I know you're a bit sick and you've got a head cold, you've done a massive favour. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, Kelly. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, Simon.